Hi techies, welcome to the Elephant Code. If you're new to this channel, then please do not forget to subscribe this channel and also like the video and hit the notification button to get update from Elephant Code. So today we will be discussing about new and init method which are available in the Python, and basically these methods are getting executed while you are creating the class definition and instantiating an object for that class. These are very important methods because when you are designing any system and considering some kind of designing pattern to be implemented in your system design, these are the method which plays very important role. So we will be discussing these method further while we will be discussing about the design pattern, but for now we'll be restricting this discussion to understand what this new method and init method does in Python. Okay, so now this video is bifurcated into two parts. One is the theory part and the other one is the practical part. So first we will see what is this new method, what is this init method, how these are different to each other, and thereafter we will go into the practical to see how we can implement some sort of code with the help of these method. Okay, so now if you see the first slide, it says that new method is being called before the init method. So this is the first method. When you are trying to create an object, let's suppose the class name is ABC. So let's suppose you are creating a object obj equal to ABC parenthesis. Okay, so the first method which it will be executing is the init method. Okay, so this is the first point. So before the init method, the new method will get called. Okay, the second point is it tries to create the instance of the class. So it tries to create the instance of the class and then return that instance to the init method. Okay, so this is the second point. The third point, it says that it always takes an first argument as the class name, CLS class. Okay, so while you are creating the object like obj equal to ABC parenthesis, that ABC is nothing but a kind of parameter which is being passed to the new method. Okay, and thereafter if you have certain more argument which you want to pass it to the init method which will be proceeding after new method, you can pass those also from this new method. Okay, the fourth point, it should always be returning the instance of the class. So it creates the instance and then it should be returning the instance of the class. But in case if you're not returning any instance of the class, then what will happen, it will not be calling the init method which is there inside your class definition. Okay, so ensure that if you are using this new method, or you are overriding this new method definition in your explicitly in your class definition, you should always be returning the object so that it should call the init method. In case if you are not returning that instance, then init method will not be called and none of your instance variable get assigned to your value. The fourth thing is the fifth thing is when you need some kind of more control over the instance creation. So for example, if you want to do some kind of operation before the instance creation, then those logic you can keep it inside the new method. For example, if let's suppose you consider the singleton pattern, where we say that if there's already an instance available for this class, we should not be allowing to create further instance to that class. In that case, you can put those logic inside the new method before you create a new instance of the class. Okay, so these are the 5 points which are which goes with this new method. So let us consider now the init method. As I told you, the the init method, it is always being called after the new method. So once the new method gets called, it creates the instance, and then it calls the init method. Okay, so it is always being called after the new method. Okay, now the second point is it is responsible for the initialization of the attribute. Okay, now what happens inside the, see, this init method is nothing but a kind of, you know, constructor of your class. So it is used to initialize the instance variable which are present in your class, which all other method of your class can access. Okay, so those instance variable, if you want to initialize it, you can keep it inside the init method, and those instance variable will get initialized with a certain value which you will be keeping inside the init method. Okay, now the third point, it says that it always receive you know, kind of self as a first argument. Okay, and if you have any additional argument, so that can also be kept inside the inside the init method, but it is always, you know, the first parameter should always be kind of self. Self is nothing but your instance. Okay, so the newly created instance which is coming from the new method, that will act as a self. Okay, and then with the help of self you can initialize the instance variable. And then the last point, it tells it does not return any kind of, you know, value. The purpose of this init method is just to initialize the instance variable or instance variable which are present in your class. Okay, so these are the theoretical point. Now what we will do, we'll try to jump into the practical to see how we can you know, write some kind of code to understand it you know, in a better way. So I have already created, you know, kind of two object. I will show how these two in new and init method are being executed in this class. Okay, so let us consider this class A. Okay, now in this class A you can see there are two methods, new and init, and as I was telling that this new method will always be taking the first argument as a class name. Okay, so now this is a class type which is being passed as an argument to this method. Okay, now the second thing which I told you is that it always create a instance of the class, and then the return type is always a kind of, you know, newly created instance. So only when you return this newly created instance, this method will be called. Okay, now here if you see, here in the first section the new method is creating an instance. Now how it is creating an instance, it calls the super constructor of the object class and pass the class name, and then from there it call a method, the new method, which will be help you to create the instance of the class A. Okay, now when you are returning this, then it will call this init method. Now what is there inside the init method? There's a print statement called init is being called. Okay, so let me just comment the second part of it and then execute this code. Okay, now here you see the output. So what it does, I mean, when we are creating a kind of, when we are calling this object, calling this class with a parenthesis, it is nothing but it is trying to create a object on fly. Okay, so while we are creating this object, what happened, this first call this particular new method. So if you see, the first line is creating instance. Okay, so this is the line which gets printed. So this is the first method which is being called, and then it tries to return the newly created instance. So when you write this, automatically this init method gets called. Okay, so now if you see the second line, say init is being called. Okay, so you understood the flow is like the new will execute first and then init will execute first. Okay, new will be taking the CLS as the first parameter of this method. Okay, and init will take self as the first parameter to its method, and then for this new it should always be returning the instance of the class. Okay, so if you are returning an instance, then automatically it will call the init method. Okay, and init method is used to initialize any kind of instance variable which are present in class A. So at present we don't have that thing, but you can always do it like this: self dot, let's say, A equal to 13. So this is nothing, 12. So this is nothing but you are assigning, you are instantiating a instance variable A to 12. Okay, so this is nothing but acting as a constructor for your class. Okay, now let me do one thing. Let me open this second example, and yeah, and let me explain what this particular piece of code is doing. Okay, let me comment. Okay, let's keep it like this only. Let's put a kind of print statement saying print second example. Okay, so here let me put a kind of an and some star to distinguish. Okay, and then maybe I can put um, this also. Okay, now we have this class B. Okay, now here if you see again, we have again two method, new and init method. So here if you see, we have one print statement inside the new method. Okay, so see, rest all things are similar. I mean, it is taking the first parameter as class, and init is taking the first parameter as self. Okay, but here we are just printing a statement saying that create instance, but here we are not returning or creating any kind of instance of this class B. Okay, so what I had told in the previous example, if you do not create and return the instance, it won't be calling the init method. Okay, so let us see if it is calling this particular method or not. Okay, so let's see. Okay, see, in the second example, when we call this B, what it does, it goes to the new method as the first method of the class to get executed. Okay, it print the creating instance, but it did not call the init method. Why? Because it has not created the instance and it has not returned that instance. Only when you create and return the newly created instance, then only the init method or the constructor of the class will get created. Since we are not doing it here, so this method is not getting executed. So this became a kind of out of the scope for this class B when you don't have the return of the newly created instance from the new method. Okay, I hope you understood this idea of having this new method and init method. Hopefully, I mean, we will be bringing such kind of interesting video. Plus one more thing, I mean, do not forget to subscribe the channel, and if you like our effort, please hit the notification button and also like the video. Thank you.